local government or government, for that matter, anywhere. The third element of this is the enforcement aspect of it, partly reporting requirements, partly enforcement by the Campaign Finance Board if there is a violation, and certainly monitoring by the Campaign Finance Board to make sure that the candidates and the people and the contributors are all following the system. And then there is a series of other things that New York City has done that are not directly involved in campaign finance, but they seem to have been, in essence, rolled in some way to this, or are sitting so closely side by side with it that I at least should mention it to you because it's in the materials that you will see. They have what is called, I believe it's a voter assistance board or voter assistance commission, which is intended to encourage voter registration, participation in elections, and particularly to reach out to members of the minority communities in order to encourage their participation in municipal elections and increase voter turnout in minority communities. And there are some other responsibilities that they have as well. Those are the general elements to the system.
Steve, answer the question, and I don't know if anyone else is thinking this, but we start down this road because Chuck Lesnick wrote a letter that simply said, I've written in years past for campaign finance report matching funds for those candidates who agree spending limits. As it works in New York City, blah, blah, I realize this note's not enough time to do anything other than draft a bill that mirrors New York City. He doesn't make a case for what he's saying is wrong. And I don't know about, again, anybody else here, but I immediately react to, okay, so we're talking about matching funds using taxpayers' money. We're talking about having to set up a campaign finance board, which would require some money. And just as a quick run, it's like, wow, I don't know if I'm even interested in that. You know, until somebody at least makes a case for what the heck we're talking about here.
I agree.
He hasn't made even a case why we should do this. And I mean, the research was necessary to get us to this point, but I had an immediate reaction. That's a lot.
A lot.
It's a lot.
More than I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can.
Yeah, and guys, let me tell you something, because just on that vein, Julius, this little tiny thin little packet, most of which deals with the kind of stuff we're talking about. There's some extraneous stuff in here, but I'd say 80% of it is that. Not all of it would be necessary for Yonkers. Yonkers is not quite as complex as the city, but it would still be a substantial piece of legislation that would be complex, that would have to address all of these issues. It would have to address campaign contributions, it would have to address reporting, and what you will see when you take a look at this is that because it involves money, because it involves politics, it requires a good deal of attention to detail, because if you don't pay attention to that detail, all that ends up happening is that there are people out there who look, the first thing that they do is, how can I get around this? And so it requires a good deal of thinking if you want to have a real system that has some meat to it and teeth to it, that effort has to be put in. And I have not, as of yet, critically evaluated what's in the New York City. I didn't think that was appropriate. I think that would have been ahead of where the commission is. So all I've done, and all I'm prepared to do with you tonight, is to give you an understanding of what the basics are of the system. And then I think it's perfectly appropriate to decide, do you want me to go any further? Do you want to invite Chuck down and ask him to give you a presentation as to why he thinks this is important, or whatever else you may want to do?
Steve, who would appoint, it says here the board is appointed. Who appoints the board in the city, for example? In New York City.
Okay, it's a question that's perfectly rational and simple. The answer is a little bit more complicated, because it's not as much, and you'll harken back to what I'm going to say because of what you will remember from having been on the commission. You remember when we turned around and we dealt with the Inspector General's term, right? And the whole business was to make it 5 years? Okay. It's not so much who appoints, because I forget exactly how it's done. I think it's the mayor, and then there's an approval process as well, but it's for how long. And the appointments are all for 5 years, and they're all staggered, so that in any given year, I